Bit of a delay. Okay, so here we go. Smile. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's CX Quick Tips. I've got a good high energy friend of mine. We always have a great discussion. Justin Robbins with me. Justin, welcome.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Good, man. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Now, remember, CX Quick Tips for those that have not had an opportunity to participate. And we only go for about 10 minutes. So we get right to the action, get right to some quick tips so that you can take faster actions. And that's the whole key here. And all you have to do is, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching a replay, just click subscribe. And that way you'll be notified. And we have these each and every week, Tuesdays, 1:05 Eastern. Justin, okay, so today we're going to talk about spring cleaning. Now, for those in the Northern Hemisphere, that is the case right now. And we're looking at it's March 23rd, 2021. We're wrapping up that first quarter. And for many, getting ready to get into a summer season that has some peaks in it. So tell us a little bit about what you did in your operations days and you hear about other people doing in regards to continuous improvement in contact centers and spring cleaning.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. As I mentioned, this was top of mind for me this time of year because almost everybody, right, does annual reviews. And if you do it based off of the calendar, typically those are happening December, January. And now you've gone back, you've had the opportunity to take a breath. What happened in the past year? What are people doing really well? And what do people, maybe have some opportunities to improve? So that was one of the very first things, right? And so right out the gate with a quick tip is one of the first things that I do after I get an annual review season is to look at what are some of the big trends in my business that are opportunities for me to maybe reinforce skills, go back, do some refresher training. On topics that, when we look from a review standpoint, we're common areas where people, hey, maybe could use additional help, additional work.
Well, you had also talked about how we take that past look, and we have to be really mindful that in the contact center, that post-mortem, meaning it's already dead, it happened, and then trying to use it to project and going forward. Needless to say, if we were doing this, type of review in the first quarter of 2020, we never foresaw what happened to us for the rest of the year. So how do you think, we should approach looking forward this year with that past information, versus what we may have done last year?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. One is, look, 2020 was, probably the biggest year of learning that some of us may ever have in our career. And, I think through that, we probably learned a lot about ourselves, and we absolutely learned a lot about our people. We learned a lot of what they need from a resourcing standpoint, or how we maybe have to take a different approach to how we just do touch bases with them, or how we coach and develop them. And honestly, I don't think that there was a skill learned or exposed in the past year that won't serve us really, really well moving forward, no matter what happens in our businesses, right? So for me, I would look, here's what I would probably look back at the most is, where were the places that we spent time coaching and developing our people? And I'm going to bet, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to bet we spent a lot of time talking to people about the things that didn't go well, that needed to be tweaked, that needed to be done differently. And we probably didn't spend a lot of time on just reinforcing positive skills, on talking about all the things that they were doing well or that were going right. So as I look back on what are the things that would be helpful moving forward, maybe use this as a reminder and a check base on, what are the things that you're doing to reinforce and encourage your people, and not spend, all of the time, right? Still get expensive, but not all of the time on just coaching and talking to all the things that they're doing wrong.
Well, and I think what you talk about right now is a critical point. And for me, I even see maybe yet an additional distinction, because here's the thing: we were all going into brand new territory, and despite the outcome, right? Meaning that, hey, we had to make some adjustments. They didn't go so well. Maybe we look at the intent and the effort associated with it, because hey, when it is uncharted territory, there's a big difference between, having somebody just kind of lay back and lay down and hunker down, versus those that are trying to be proactive and take some action. I mean, I think we probably need to focus a little bit more on that effort, more so than the outcome, more than we ever have. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, this as with any great experiment, which, let's put the positive light and say that this year was a giant experiment. We've got to learn how to iterate. We've got to learn how to fail fast and be okay with that. And I would absolutely be applauding and encouraging people who were putting in effort, but we're learning from that effort, right? You putting in effort, but then not being able to iterate or adapt or evolve from it. That's a different thing, right? But if they put in the effort and maybe they didn't get it right, let's be focused on progress, not perfection, right? I think is probably one of the key things that all of us should have in mind right now.
Well, and okay, so let's add on to that, because here's what's happened is you're now more every year, past lockdown, and more companies are now coming out to say that they're making the whole remote work thing permanent, and that they won't be going back into the brick and mortar operations. Now, some contact centers worked all the way through because of the nature of their business, and how they manage that. Oh my goodness, I don't know. But most were dispersed and sent home in a
Right.
rather abrupt fashion. And some of those are now being told, hey, you could stay there if you want to. Some people didn't make it. They
Mhm.
realized that they needed to have the proximity and people around them, and essentially they realized that they can't be a remote worker. And for some people, it's just not for everybody. But what we do know is that we are more autonomous, just because the nature of the work and being remote. But however, that puts a even greater emphasis and requirement on skill development. So I would dare to say that with what we've just gone through, the whole concept and understanding of developing skills, especially leadership skills, has totally changed in the contact center. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm happy that you call that leadership skills specifically, because if I were to identify the number one place where I think not just contact centers, but businesses in general should be investing in terms of development, it's teaching their leaders, their supervisors, their coaches on how to do that well with a remote workforce. Because I would place a pretty good bet that a lot of businesses haven't spent any time on that. It's really just been a figure a way out. And now is the perfect opportunity to step back and say, how do we equip you as leaders to do this really, really well? And what does that look like? What are the signs of success? And more importantly, how do we measure and understand whether or not you're doing that effectively or not? And how we can then step in as leaders of leaders, right, to make sure that you're getting the coaching and development you need.
Yeah, and I'll give everybody a quick sobering statistic, and that is when people take that frontline supervisor role, most often they don't get any type of leadership development, whatever it is, until 6 years after they've assumed that position. We can't do that anymore. That's no longer something that we need to have as a standard and regular practice. Okay, so looking forward, Justin, what
Yeah.
is one thing that you think is going to step up? We hit a lot, just kind of a recap. We've hit a lot of things. What is one thing that I need to be thinking as I walk away from this CX quick tip?
To me, Jim, it's the importance of looking back, looking ahead, and having a plan to address things before they become issues. Right. So when you and I spoke about this very quickly, one of the primary reasons that this time of year was always about spring cleaning and refresher training for me and my contact center is because summer was our peak, and I knew if I spent March, April, and the better part of May going back and talking about the types of customer interactions or the types of situations that typically only arise during our peak season. Now I was going to get ahead. I was going to get people kind of, ease them back into what that type of year can mean for our business. So that to me is the biggest takeaway is you've probably been so heads down, so reactionary for the past 12 months, if not your entire career as a contact center leader. Take a moment to pause, breathe, look back, look ahead, and put some plans into place to make sure that you're engaging and coaching and preparing or refreshing your team on what's going to be ahead.
Okay, so now we often talk about developing of people and how much time I should invest as a leader in doing that. But I think you bring up another very important point is how much time should I be spent in planning so that I can execute correctly?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, gosh, you're talking. This is so funny because I have a four quadrants bookmark, or I guess it's actually a door hang here on my office door that actually talks about the four ways that we can spend time, right, on things that are urgent, important, urgent, not important, not urgent, not important. And what's interesting about planning is planning falls squarely in the things that is not. It doesn't feel urgent. but it is incredibly important. And those types of activities are often where we should be spending most of our time. And that can be really hard to swallow. So I don't have a magical number of hours for you, Jim, or for anybody who's watching this, other than most of our time as leaders should be spent on the things that are important, but not necessarily urgent. If we're spending all of our time on things that are urgent, important, that's probably a problem. If we've always got a sense of urgency, if we're spending things that are urgent but not important, that's a different problem, right? But the things that are important but not urgent, to which I would put planning into that bucket, that's where we should be spending most of our time as leaders.
That's a really good point. If we don't spend any time in that bucket, everything becomes urgent. Justin, always have a great time being able to talk with you and share it with others. How do CX Quick Tip listeners and watchers get in touch with you?
Yeah, super easy. On any social media channel, I'm at Justin, the letter M, Robbins, Robbins. You can also email me, justin@cxeffect.com.
Justin Robbins is also a frequent contributor to CX Global Media. Justin, thanks for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim.